Hi, and welcome to the TLC Designs YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, and I am going to make a shaker card today using one of the latest releases to hit the shop. So, very exciting that Lee Holland is the illustrator of the Warm and Fuzzy Unicorn stamp set that just released. And heads up, more might be, maybe, will be hitting the shop eventually. So stay tuned. And if you're a fan of Lee Holland, this stamp set will not disappoint. I'm starting off with some papers from the Snowy Skies Slimline paper pad, and I believe this one is available both digitally and physically. I have the physical copy that you can buy from the shop, and it's really, really fantastic because basically it's in terms of dimensions, it's half a US letter sheet of paper. And so if you just cut these panels in half, you actually have two panels or two mats and layers that you can add to your USA2 card front. And so what I've done is just chosen two, one that's a little bit more of a solid in this nice lavender color. And I'm using the daisy frame die set to cut an aperture out. So I use the second largest die to cut a window out of that that pattern paper. And even though it's a pattern paper, it's got some really nice subtle designs that keep it pretty monochromatic. So I'm basically using it as a solid color because the second paper I've chosen is has a much busier print. And I love that everything, of course, in this paper pad coordinates. But I wanted something for the outer frame to be a little bit more monochromatic. So that's why I chose these two particular patterns. And we'll be making a shaker card. So I've got some acetate here. I'm gonna just cut this down to, usually when I make a shaker card, I actually like to make my shaker a completely enclosed from the front and back with acetate. And so that's why I cut two pieces. But in the end, I actually don't use that second piece of acetate. I'll just save that. And this particular border frame from the Daisy Frames die set is really great for USA 2 size cards because you'll still have about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So I was able to apply some double-sided adhesive tape, giving my acetate a quick wipe down just to get any smudges and fingerprints off of there. And it still has a lot of that border all the way around to also attach your foam, which can be tough when you have more narrow space, but this has a very, very comfortable wide margin. So and you saw a moment ago, I am trying to use up all of my foam on a roll. Somehow I found some more in my stash I didn't know I had. And if you have foam on a roll or any kind of foam that you're trying to cut down to be a little bit more narrow, what you can do is just take that foam off the roll and apply it to another adhesive liner. And then you can cut right through it, whether you're cutting through it with scissors or using a steel ruler and a craft knife or utility blade like I like to use. And that way you especially if you're using scissors, you've got that paper liner both on both sides, and your scissors will cut through it much more cleanly, and your scissors won't have that sort of gunky adhesive residue on them, or at least a lot less of it if there is some. So I'm filling with my shaker mix, and I did put the pattern paper behind there just so that I could kind of preview how this mix will look on top of that pattern paper. I've got a combination of snowflakes, which are in and of itself a little bit of a combination of some Aurora Borealis or AB finish. Some are silver. I've got some white sequins, and I also have some purple confetti sequins as well. So a little bit of a mix. I think it went well with the Snowy Skies pattern paper and that lavender frame that we have. And I just stuck my pattern paper right down on top to close this off. And now I'm going to apply it to my card base. So because everything was cut to USA 2 size, it was really easy to line everything up, and I didn't feel like I needed a second layer of acetate behind there because that pattern paper is cut to the exact same size. So now I'll stamp out this gorgeous, super adorable unicorn, again illustrated by Lee Holland, who is a fantastic artist, and so really fun to have him illustrate some of the stamps that will be available at TLC Designs. And I'm gonna do a little bit, so I've stamped it out in a hybrid ink. And the reason for that is because oftentimes I'll stamp things out in advance, and then I'll take it to color in front of my TV, for example. And I don't always know ahead of time if I'll be using a water-based marker or an alcohol-based marker. And so that's why hybrid inks are fantastic for that, because you don't have to make that decision in advance, and when you go to color, your lines won't bleed. Because if you stamp with an ink that is at the core based in the same solution as your coloring medium, then they have the potential to affect one another because the solution that they're based off of is the same. So for example, if you stamp with an ink that is water-based and you color with markers that are water-based, water mixes with water, and so there's the potential that as you color, your stamped lines may bleed and start to affect your end result. So that's why often the rule is to stamp with a water-based ink, like a dye-based ink, when you're coloring with your alcohol markers, because the alcohol won't move that ink, and vice versa. So if you're coloring with a water-based medium, then you'll want to stamp with something like a pigment ink or a solvent-based ink, and that should prevent the same thing. And hybrid inks are a thing, unto themselves. So I'm not sure what their base is, but they work for any kind of coloring medium, whether it's water-based or alcohol-based. And today I'm coloring with a little bit of both, and that would be another reason why you might want to use a hybrid ink, because I'm coloring primarily with alcohol-based markers. These are from Spectrum Noir. They are the tri-blend brush markers, and they just relatively recently, not super recently, but these markers on the pink barrel, they're kind of new to me. They are tricolor markers, so they are not new colors, and they differ from tri-blend markers in the sense that they aren't meant to blend into a single color, but rather blend from one color to another. And so I've colored with those, and I've colored with the glitter sparkle pens, which I believe are water-based, and they have some pigment and color to them, but they have this incredible sparkle, which I thought would be fantastic for our unicorn. And I thought I would give the unicorn a little bit more snow to sit on. So I took the same frame die from the Daisy frame die set, and I've just cut this bit of scrap paper, and that gives me the exact same border at the bottom, and then I just hand cut a nice snowy hill at the top, and I inked it a little bit with some tumbled glass distress oxide ink just to give it a little bit of shadow and color. And then I'm gonna stamp out one of the really fun sentiments, and I've stamped it out in a purple ink because they're really, there's a little bit of black in the pattern paper, but when I don't use a lot of black on a card, I sometimes don't like the look of black on my sentiment. And so I've stamped that in a color ink instead. And then I set my unicorn right on that little snowy bank. So as a final touch, just to really like add some shine and sparkle, some more shine and sparkle, I should say, I added some sequins. The purple confetti, it looks a little bit more bluish on screen here, but that's because it does have a little bit of like a color shift effect. So when you tilt it, at some angles it looks purple, at some angles it looks blue. And this is just more of the snowflake confetti that I have that also has that AB finish, and some of the confetti bits are more solid and silver, some are more clear and just have that rainbow, aurora borealis effect. So here's a final look at my shaker card. Lots of fun, lots of sparkles. Love this darling unicorn illustrated by Holland, and stay tuned, and there will be more Holland illustrated stamps hitting the shop in the future. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.